So what a delight today to introduce to you the latest person to join our merry band of rebels, and she is lucky enough to live in Nanaimo, one of my favorite places. Please join me in welcoming Katrina Panova. Katrina, great to see you again. You're known online as Cat Canada, and now you're a rebel.
Yes, thank you for having me, Ezra. It's always an honor to join you on your show, and I appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the efforts of Rebel News and for Canada for the project that's ahead of us.
Well, thanks very much. As our viewers know, because we've only announced this a couple of days ago, we set up that third-party campaign group because Elections Canada demanded we did. As you know, Elections Canada prosecuted me when I published my book, The Libranos. They said it was a campaign expense. I said, no, it's not. It's a book. And they went after the lawn signs as well, saying that's an illegal promotion of the book. I said, that's all allowed. I was convicted. And so you know what? We did try fighting it for 5 years in court. But in the end, I didn't win. So I don't want to be charged again with partisan conduct. So we've set up this, it's actually in my own name. It's called For Canada. So it's a separate thing from Rebel News. It has its own bank account, its own stuff. And we're going to put the partisan stuff in there so we don't get in trouble. And I if that sounds too shy or deferential, it's really my goal is to avoid being just crushed by Elections Canada. And I've discovered that it's a really fun way of participating in an election too. So Kat, one of your projects is to work with Rebel News in general, but also to help provide services for Canada, that's the third-party group, tweeting, circulating videos. Really, we're in a campaign, aren't we?
Yes, Ezra, we certainly are. And once again, I really appreciate the opportunity to contribute to that because it's something that I do as a hobby, basically. It's a passion of mine to fight for this country, to fight for the freedoms in our country, to not let it fall into the hands of the likes of WEF globalist bankster types like Carney. And so when I was given this opportunity to join, it was just such a resounding yes for me because, as Daniel Smith said, this is an election of our lifetime. And I feel like this is one last chance that we have to save this country and to return it to a safe, prosperous Canada that we all once knew and loved. And I want to bring that back. And I want to pour my heart and soul into this so that my children and everyone's children have a bright future in Canada.
Well, that's amazing, and it shows every day. I'm a fan of your work. I followed you on X or Twitter, as it used to be called, for years. And one of the things you've told me, in fact, we were talking on the phone yesterday, one of the things you said to me was that your belief in freedom was informed by the fact that when you were a little girl, you actually were born and grew up in the former Soviet Union. So you know what it's like to come from a place that's with an authoritarian government, without privacy, without civil liberties, where the government was large and abusive. Maybe talk for a minute about that. And it's my observation from the pandemic and the lockdowns that the people who were most alert and alive to the risk were people who had more recently come from the Eastern Bloc, because within their lifetimes they could remember authoritarianism.
Yes, that's right. I come from Soviet Union. I grew up there. I was 11 years old when my family basically sold everything they owned in an attempt to bring us to a country that's free and democratic like Canada. And I may have been young when I was there, but I've pressed my mom for all the stories that she could remember and tell me about what it was like living in a communist, tyrannical country like the Soviet Union, where there is no freedom of the press, no freedom of speech. Everything was a deficit, basic necessities, food items, clothing, etc., you name it. And people were living, in a very demoralized situation. And so when the pandemic hit and I started to see similar policies coming down from our government, from this liberal government that resembled policies and just, things that the communist Soviet Union did, I was sounding the alarm bells like crazy to anyone who would listen. I got on social media. We were all locked down during the lockdowns. And so I had time on my hands, and I was just trying to push out as much information about that as possible, because it was really worrying to see the censorship and the tyranny that was being foisted upon us by the liberal government. So it was very worrisome to see. And that's when I was following your work closely as well, because you guys were doing amazing work. You received a lot of trouble from authorities for it. I remember seeing police raids, et cetera. That was scary to witness. I could hardly believe that that's what was happening in front of my eyes in a country that my parents gave up everything for to bring us here, only to watch our freedoms basically dissolve because there was a flu going around.
Yeah.
And I certainly also received a lot of flack for it. I was called every name in the book. I was called a tinfoil hatter, a nut job for trying to sound the alarm bells, but I could not stay silent because I'm a mother of 2 children now. And I wanted to know that I've done and said everything I could to make sure that this doesn't happen permanently in this country. I want to live in a free country, not a tyrannical one.
Well, that's music to my ears, and that really is our core belief. You know, at the end of every one of my shows, I say, keep fighting for freedom. And it's more than just a tagline. It's how I would summarize the central belief system at Rebel News. I mean, we believe in other more specific policies, but in terms of, if I had to sum up our philosophy, it's freedom. And so we're so glad to have you join us. A lot of your work is sort of behind the scenes, or when you yourself are not the star. You're a social media guru. You're working on tweets and memes. But I'm hoping that from time to time, you'll take a microphone and go out into the world. I mentioned Nanaimo. I started with a little anecdote about our campaign there. I understand, for example, that the Conservative Party campaign is coming out to Nanaimo on Friday, and it's really fun to go out to record a rally, but also to do what we call streeters, or man on the street interviews, just asking people why you're here. And the reason I love streeters is they're fun and they're sort of easy to do, frankly, but you never know what you're going to get. You never know. You can't, I mean, sometimes you sort of think, oh, I know what this guy's going to say, but so often you're completely surprised. Someone might look like they're a real lefty, but actually they've got a great freedom-oriented story. And you're out in the world and it's all spontaneous. To me, streeters are super fun. David Menzies is the king of streeters. And so there are some big shoes to fill. But I hope that from time to time on Vancouver Island, when there are things near or in Nanaimo, that you'll be our feet on the ground. We have Drea Humphrey, who's on the mainland, but of course, it's a couple hours by ferry to get across. So hopefully you'll be able to fly the flag a little bit. And I think you'll get a lot of positive reaction. David was telling me about when he was at the Conservative rally. He said that dozens, maybe even hundreds of people came up to him for selfies and to say hi. Obviously, David's a character, but it's also the Rebel News brand. People know that we're on their side. So I'm hoping you'll be a great part of the team. I know you will, because I've been following your work online for years. And I just thought I'd take a minute to introduce you more formally. I know we've talked before, but to our Rebel viewers, and to let them know that you're joining us pretty much full time right now, and perfect timing because of the campaign. Last word to you, Kat.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ezra. I appreciate the introduction. It really means a lot. It's an honor to be here. And yes, to stretch my legs a bit and to do something that I don't typically do, which is streeters, would be amazing. I've been wanting to do something more, and in addition to what I already do, which is, like you said, mostly behind social media stuff. So I'm really excited to do that. And I've had a chance to ask Pierre Poilievre a question once. It'll be fun to do that again, and to participate in all the election goings on that are happening in and around Nanaimo. I'm honored to contribute my efforts to this.
Well, you're very kind. You know, obviously your obligations to your family comes first. I know you got a couple of kids. One of our teammates, Tamara, has 5 kids. Sheila's got 3. Drea's got kids. So there's a lot. And obviously that comes first. So obviously you have obligations there. But it's my hope that with a little bit of notice, you can head out into the world. And I would love to see you put questions to Pierre Poilievre, not just because I want to know what he thinks, but I think a well-crafted question put to Pierre Poilievre and his answer can actually shift the coverage. We've seen that already. The other day, Alexa Lavoie asked Pierre Poilievre about if the Liberal contest itself might be rigged, because who were the 250,000 voters who were disqualified? Is it really likely that, Karina Gould and Chrystia Freeland only got less than 200 votes in their own districts? Putting that controversial question to Pierre Poilievre and having him answer it turned it into news that other people talked about. It was a really fun thing. So coming up with thoughtful questions, they really try and keep us out of Mark Carney events, and I don't know our likelihood of getting into those. He will come to Vancouver Island, and I hope you'll give it a shot. But even putting questions to Pierre Poilievre can change the course of the campaign. Anyways, we'll talk more in the weeks ahead. It's great to have you on the team. Thanks for taking the time to join the show, and good luck out there on Vancouver Island. It's a beautiful place in the country.
Thanks for having me, Ezra.
Our pleasure. There you have it, Katrina Panova, the latest rebel.